Hello, everybody. Welcome to the season 1 recap of Journey and Wander. We have finished basically one branch of our journey tree. And basically, I just want to talk about, just kind of give a little recap on everybody and talk about how it had affected me. And this has been a really cool experience so far because not only have I gotten to dig deeper into, a couple people I had already known but didn't know as much about. And then I got to meet some entirely new people, including, just some people that I had always heard about. The Bend scene isn't super connected to the Portland scene or anything. So talking to some people there and talking to Rochelle and Amanda were in Portland and Lucy in Seattle, and I got to talk to them a bit more, which was that was really cool because I always hear names, but I never really get to meet people. So it was an interesting experience getting to do that. Basically, we started off the season with one of my closest comedy friends in general. He kind of was always just the experienced person in our scene that kind of knew had a lot of experience in a lot of different places that we hadn't had, and I learned a lot about him because I thought I knew him deeply, and I did not. But his basically his journey is run by his fear of not reaching his full potential, and that came to be because he had a couple friends in high school die, and that in dealing with those, talking to somebody, realized that he kind of, I guess, realized his own mortality, and that pushed him to do a lot of different things. He's real into music and does a lot of hip hop stuff, comedy. Went to LA and did a lot of acting and such. And basically he got started off like in a high school pageant and for a fundraiser, and he had to do a talent, and that was his first time doing comedy was there, and he crushed it. I've seen the video. It's pretty good. And then after that, we basically moved down to Carter Anderson, and he was in Portland for a while, and that's where Cody had met him, or was outside of Portland, and now he's in Austin, and that's where I initially met him. And it was cool getting to know him as well because I've met him a couple times. I had done a show with him, and then I had done his podcasts. But here I actually really got to know him as a full-fleshed human being, and that was really interesting. Says just entertaining in general has always been his biggest motivator. He thought it was stand-up until all this COVID stuff happened, and he in general that keeps him going. And basically what inspired that was his love for TV. He went in on that, and just how that made him want to basically get into theater. And he told a really cool story about he had to do an audition or a play or something, and he was supposed to have another person there, and they never showed up, so he had to do both parts. And then he said his biggest obstacle was realizing he doesn't know as much as he thought he did when he was a little kid, which I really related to, because that sometimes, you kind of get knocked off your horse at a certain age, when you realize, yeah, the world isn't as easy as you think it is. And he was just grateful that nowadays what he has is momentum. So that's you know that's a good thing to have, especially in 2020. So it was cool getting to know what that meant for him. You can check out his podcasts, in the Meme Time and Geeked Out, both on this same network. So check those out. Then we got to talk to Rochelle, and this Rochelle Cochran is in Portland, and this is where we started to go into people I had never met, never talked to, never was even like on a show with them, never, to my knowledge, never in the same room as them before. And getting to talk to her was neat. She basically her journey was just she wants to live a life to just a knowing that she tried to make people laugh and feel good, which is a similar theme through the whole season, because basically that's how a lot of comedians think. It was interesting getting dive into that. And she said she got that just because she was the funny one in the family and always felt that way. So she kind of just took ownership of that, and that kind of grew into something, where that's now what she does. And so that was cool. And she said one of the biggest obstacles in her journey was telling jokes about being gay because it was not accepted in her family, even talking about her family reading Leviticus to her. So that was interesting. And but just definitely cool that she was able to that she now is able to show that part of herself on stage. So it was cool getting to see what how that came to be. And the next one, we got to talk to Amanda Lynn Deal. And Amanda is another Portland comic, and probably out of this whole list, she's the person that I've heard of the most. Like I've seen the name on, just different comedy posters on social media, a lot of different people tagged her in different things. She just seems like a pretty influential person to the stand-up scene in Portland. And so basically she very similar to Rochelle, wanted to make people laugh and smile. But she said her grandpa inspired it. She said her grandpa was the funniest guy she ever knew and would just be funny in it was great at being funny in conversation effortlessly. And she said she started off because there were some great programs at Second City in Chicago, which is interesting because got to I've had a couple comedy friends move to Chicago recently. And so it was interesting getting some insight on the scene there, and it seems pretty welcoming for how big of a city it is. So that was neat to hear. She said her biggest obstacle was getting past sexism in comedy. She said she started way back in 2013, and that was when I was like 14 years old. And so it was interesting hearing what the scene was like then, because of course I've only been in the scene very short amount of time, and it's, I don't know, at least where I am is very accepting. There's not really any kind of harassment or anything like that in our scene. So and then my experiences in Portland and Seattle are even more politically correct than what I see here. So it was interesting hearing about a time when the scene was still like that intense, so and she said helped getting her over that, just continuing to do what she does anyways. And eventually things lightened up, and probably in part of people like her. Then the last person I talked to was Lucy Tollefson in Seattle, who basically, similar to Cody, had dealt with death at a young age, and which motivated her to connect with people. She was talking about how her influences were Mike Birbiglia and people who like to, share deep parts about themselves and make it funny. And that's one thing that I felt with her, was that she seemed very in touch with herself, but still very funny, which was a cool thing to see. Basically, if I were to sum up what I've learned from all of this, I mean, a lot. I think a lot of it gave me confidence in my own journey, because it was kind of validating to see how similar comedians are. Even though everybody had their different upbringing and whatnot, at the end of the day, our goal is pretty similar. And that was cool to see, because I don't know, it might sound obvious, but doesn't always seem obvious in the scene. So it was really cool seeing that. I definitely feel like it. Doing this podcast gave me a lot of confidence coming back on stage after COVID. Hearing about this, it made me excited to do it again. I believe on the first episode, maybe even, I think it was probably just the first episode, I still wasn't performing yet. So I, started performing basically because I had qualified for a competition before all this. And I assumed it was canceled. And then they let me know that it was still going, and I was still a finalist in one, and I ended up winning that. So that was a lot of fun. And it was cool. Just, like it, I think with COVID, it made a lot of, it kind of, I don't know, tested what we thought our goals were, because I remember having a rough time, trying to think, is this really something I want to do? And talking to everybody just made it a lot easier to get back into it. And the other thing is, talking to people who had dealt with death at a young age, and the urgency it gave them to do what they want in life has really helped me with, not just with comedy, but with my own personal obstacles. I've made a lot of progress there, and I'd have to say I'm probably at the most well-balanced I've been in a long time. And talking to somebody new every week and going in depth with them has really given me perspective on myself, especially because I'm by far, well, maybe not by far, but at least by 5 years, I think the youngest person out of all the people I've interviewed. So I got to talk to people with a lot of life experience, talk about basically how their development was, not only in comedy, but in life. So that was really interesting to see. And this next season, I'm really excited about. I'm not starting with somebody I know. We're kind of going to just start off with somebody I don't, and we're going to go down the chain just the same as we did this one. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting to know new people. And I think this second season is something to look forward to. If you like this one, I think next season is going to get real intense, and I'm excited for what that that means for the show and what that means for my own life, getting to talk to these people every week. So thank you guys very much for staying tuned with us through this. And I hope this next season really, I hope it is all lives up to what I think it's going to be, because I think it's going to be pretty cool. So thank you guys so much. This is Journey and Wander Season 1 recap.